Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaevacha Patitanam Pavadebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. My dear Lord, please guide us on so that we can understand how your will is for our highest welfare and encourage us to harmonize with your will. Hare Krishna. So this is, how many of you have a copy of the book? Yeah, 10 copies roughly. Okay, are there any more over here?
No.
I think we're getting a few more.
Yes, Prabhu.
So, as Mulita Prabhu mentioned, I have been writing on the Bhagavad Gita for almost 15 years, daily one article. And the last 1 year or so, I felt that I'm doing a lot of analysis of the Gita, but the Gita's conclusion is in loving surrender. So how to develop a more emotional connect with the Lord through the Gita. So I started looking at not just the commentaries of our acharyas, which I have read by Krishna's Mercy several times, but I also started looking at how the Bhakti acharyas quote the Bhagavad Gita in other Bhakti texts, in their commentaries, which verses they quote, in what mood they quote. So I came across the words for the Mukund Mala Stotra, which describes how Kulashekar Maharaj has composed it, is praying to the Lord. And this prayer seems to be directly inspired from a Gita verse. So the idea is that I'll be writing and drawing something over here. So in one sense, if Krishna is here and we are here, so Krishna's words to us is the Gita. At the same time, now while we want to apply the Gita, for applying the Gita, we can pray to Krishna so that the Gita can be applied for us. So our prayer can be inspired by the words of the Gita. So Kulashekar Maharaj is praying Samsara Sagar Nimaknamananta Deenam Uddharatum Hare Purushottamosmi. From this endless, insurmountable ocean of material existence, O Lord, it behooves you to uplift me. Now why does it behoove the Lord? Because the Lord has promised in the Bhagavad Gita, Teshamaham samuddarta mrityu sansar sagarat bhavami nachirat partha mai aveshita chetasam. So Gita 12.7 is coming. I think Kumar Sotra 37, 30, one of the verses. So, like that, taking inspiration from there, I've taken the Gita's verses in this book and then I have translated them into English poetry and then I've composed some prayers. So what we will do today is, all of us will read, or some of us will read one paragraph from it and we will discuss based on that. And so for each of these pages, I've got a picture of a beautiful deity of Krishna so that we can feel that personal connect. And I have given the summary of each prayer like a spiritual affirmation. So let's start with, and fold our hands if you like. And you can repeat after me. You just repeat this prayer. My dear Lord, help me to act for a cause bigger than my selfish pleasure. So let's recite the verse. Yagyarthat karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sanga samachara. Work done as a sacrifice comes with no chain, but work done selfishly brings bondage and pain. Therefore, act always for the highest cause. Be beautiful, stay free from attachment's jaws. It's Bhagavad Gita 3.9. Do we have a second mic by any chance? No problem, that's perfectly fine. So, the room is not very large. So, who would like to read the first paragraph? Yes, please.
Please, O Lord, let me remember that karma is always meant for dharma. My activity should align with harmony, enabling me to belong harmoniously to the larger units I am part of.
So, the theme that we will discuss today is primarily centered on surrender. Sometimes surrender is seen negatively as obedience. Whatever I am told, I should do it. And that's one aspect of it. But it's a gradual evolution of consciousness to come to its culmination. Now, at a basic level, all of us do activity. And activity in Sanskrit is called as karma. We all do different kinds of activities. So some of you have come today for this program. Someone else may say, okay, I want to stay home and watch TV. I want to go for some party. I want to relax. So we all make different choices. We are constantly doing activity. Now, activity is driven by some purpose. Why am I doing the activity? Now we may say, all of us are pleasure seeking. So, we all do the activity that will give us some pleasure. And then different people have different definitions of pleasure. And accordingly, different people will do different activities. Well, that is true. At the same time, what we look for is not just pleasure. We all want meaningful pleasure. Many times, especially now, parents ask me, our children are so much hooked onto social media, hooked onto their phones. What can we do about it? Why are so many people hooked onto their phones now? So I tell that, Mohammed answer a different way. One of my answers is that the question we should be asking is not that why are so many people addicted to their phones. The question is, why is not everyone addicted to their phones? Because there is so much titillation, so much entertainment, so much gratification, as we call it, so much dopamine hits, to use biological language, so easily available. So why is it that everyone is not hooked onto that? That's because we all want meaningful pleasure. So basically, when we do karma, there are two pulls which are going in two different directions. One is the search for pleasure, and the other is the search for meaning. I want to do something meaningful in my life. And now, of course, you can say pleasure is also meaningful. True. But if you look at the most fulfilling moments in our life, they are not necessarily the times when we enjoyed the most. They are often the times when we challenged ourselves and achieved something substantial. And then we feel satisfied. So pleasure and meaning often pull us in different directions. Now interestingly, in the Vedic tradition, pleasure is called as kama, and it is considered as one of the purusharthas. That means it doesn't say that we shouldn't be pursuing pleasure. But it says that something comes before kama. What comes before kama? Dharma, artha, kama and moksha. So what it says is that this pursuit of meaning is we want it for a weekend. But afterwards we want to do something. Just watching comedy shows and laughing, it will become boring. Isn't it? So we want pleasure, but we don't just want pleasure, we want meaningful pleasure. And just watching comedies and laughing, it is fairly meaningless. So from that perspective, let us see how this, when we get karma through dharma and artha, that leads to meaningful pleasure. Now the word dharma has many different meanings. Would you like to say what is the meaning of dharma? What are the various meanings that you know are aware of?
Duty.
One of the meanings is dharma. Yes, we all have to do our duty. So it is a duty, say, Indians are very conscious of the duty that we have to take care of our parents, our elders. That is dharma, for example. Anything else?
Constitution. Characteristic.
Yeah, so it's Prabhupada explains that it's our constitutional position or our characteristics. It's a defining characteristic. Anything else?
Purpose. Religion.
Dharma commonly is today understood as religion.
Purpose.
Purpose. Dharma can refer to the purpose of our life. Anything else? Yeah. All of these are good. I have a whole class on there are 6, the word dharma is used in the Bhagavad Gita with 6 different meanings. So I have a whole class on that, it's a bit more technical. But here I will start with one of the most integrated meanings of the word dharma, which includes all these senses. So broadly, dharma means, it doesn't mean only this, but this is one meaning which will help us understand other meanings. It is harmonious belonging. That wherever we are all parts of a larger whole. So, if wherever we are parts of a larger whole. So, for example, right now you are attending this talk. So, you are a part of a larger whole. So, the dharma is belonging in a harmonious way. So, if you come here and say you sit with your back to the speaker, then it will be a bit weird, isn't it? Or if somebody is continuously talking on the phone, it will be disruptive. So dharma means the individual who belongs to a larger whole, that belongs harmoniously. Now, but that harmonious belonging is not only one way. It is, there is a collective, the larger whole, we can call it the collective. Now there is an individual and there is a collective. But there is dharma of the individual for the collective, but there is also the dharma of the collective for the individual. So if you are coming here and you are paying attention, I as a speaker should be speaking something worth paying attention to. So when both do their part, when the individual does the part to the collective and the collective does the part for the individual, then this harmony leads to the production of artha. Artha is value. So if the speaker is well informed, the audience is receptive, then a meaningful transmission of wisdom happens. And the speaker feels that I did some service of value. The audience feels, yes, it was a worthwhile investment of time. To use Indian language, paisa vasool. Okay. So I got something for my investment of time. So dharma leads to artha. In general, any larger whole that we belong to, if you are driving on the road. I was just in India 2 days ago, and I was giving a talk in IISC in Bangalore. So there was a foreign faculty over there in IISC, and he was telling that for me, he is now, India is also rising, so he's come to India to do some research. So he's saying the most difficult part of India for me has been the traffic. So it seems the only rule for traffic is that there is no rule. It's not that bad, but it's just that for somebody who's been in America or Australia for that matter, the Indian traffic seems sorry?
Flows. It flows.
It flows. Well, I appreciate how polite you are.
Yeah.
It's not only chaos.
See, it's chaos, but it's still people move around. It's not that the accidents in India are astronomically more than in America. There are. So, I told him the concept of dharma over there. I said, no, there is a way to belong in the Indian traffic. And you have to learn that. So the idea is that it's not completely ruleless. There is chaos, but even within the chaos there is order. So the idea is that people do move. Whatever there are the rules, it's not that everybody is chaotic. People navigate and go through. And in that case, the artha is that we want to get to our destination as smoothly, as safely, as swiftly as possible. So those who have lived in India, they know how to navigate the traffic, how not to injure others, how not to get injured, and still move on. So whichever is the larger collective that we belong to, we need to belong harmoniously to that. And when that happens, then dharma leads to artha. And when we have created something of value, then we can get meaningful pleasure. Then what we get is karma. Let's look at karma in a few minutes. So enabling me to belong harmoniously to the larger units I am a part of, whichever larger unit it might be. Who would like to read the next paragraph?
The more I perform karma without consideration of dharma, the more my actions become disruptive or even destructive, and the more I become implicated in suffering their consequences.
Yes. So dharma is not just a religious principle. It is a religious principle, but it is not just a religious principle. It is just the operational principle of material existence. Whichever larger unit we are a part of, if we do not belong harmoniously to that, then we will create trouble. I've been traveling across the world for the last 12 years now, and pre-pandemic or even a little bit after pandemic, whichever country I would go to, in general, Indians are highly respected. In America, Indians are considered the model minority. There's a lot of concern about immigration in America, and there's a lot of disruption caused to the world economy because of harsh immigration policies and other tariffs and other things. But the point is that while India is also being targeted somewhat unfairly right now, but the point is in general, I feel that if almost most immigrants to America were like Indians, they say that America would be much more successful. Indians are generally law-abiding, tax-paying, family-raising. America is a welfare state. Not exactly, Europe is a more of a welfare state, but America also has social security. But generally, very few Indians are unemployed and they become a burden on the American social system. So the idea is that Indians are respected. So Indians go to the West and then they learn to belong harmoniously. But in the last 2-3 years, the Indians who are traveling as tourists in Western countries are actually giving a bad name to India. I don't know if you've seen some viral videos, people go and People spit on the road sometimes. People make a. In the West, people are generally discreet. People just go and make a lot of noise in public places, and sometimes people try to steal from supermarkets. And not Indians alone who do it, but there are Indians, and sometimes many of the disruptive habits that are, we won't say appreciated in India, but they're tolerated in India. Tolerated to the point of being a norm. When people do it in the West, it creates disruption. So whichever larger whole we are a part of, we need to belong harmoniously to that. Prabhupada would quote the saying, do in Rome as Romans do. Now that does not mean we have to adopt all the values and purposes of Romans. But there is a functional larger whole, and we need to belong to that whole properly. If we do not belong, that means if our karma is not leading to dharma, then that will be disruptive, that can even be destructive. So if a student gets into college, in India there are a lot of reservations. In America they have what is called as diversity quota. I don't know if there's something like that here in Australia. That basically in America they say that if they admitted students in the Ivy Leagues solely based on merit, then the American universities, it is the top university, will be filled with Indian and Chinese students. There would not even be any Americans over there, please. Or to speak of other demographics. So at least in India, the admission criteria is fairly transparent. Okay, anybody above this percentage gets into this college. Anybody below this percentage don't get into the college. So, but there they consider various factors, and there was an Indian medical student, he had 4.8 CGPA, and he tried to, Indian student, he wanted to get into medical college, he couldn't get in. So then he did some things, he got his name legally changed. And he was from South India, he was quite dark in complexion. So he created a whole fictional history for himself, saying that he's a black. And the same college that rejected him immediately got admission. And he stayed for 1 year in that college, he left that college and wrote a book about it. And it is one of the few things where Indians and Chinese actually cooperated to sue, I think, several, was it Harvard or Princeton, one of the top universities, they sued that they were discriminating against Indian students, Indian and Chinese students. So the point I'm making over here is that I have friends who are faculty in Ivy Leagues, and they say that when there are students, the point is not particular demographics here, but the point is that students who get admitted by the diversity quota, they are often not of the same IQ level as other students. So if, say, all the students in Ivy League are having an IQ of average 140, 150, it's not very high, but it's quite high overall. And in that somehow somebody gets in the IQ of 110, is that either the whole class has to come down to their level, or they are constantly struggling to catch up. And they struggle and fail, and they feel so inferior and insecure. They could have gone to a mid-level university and they could have actually succeeded over there. So the point is that even if somebody manages to, here we are not blaming the individuals over there, but my point is that if somebody is belonging to a larger whole and their actions are not harmonious with that whole, some universities are where students are much more serious, like some schools for example. There are neighborhoods where the schools are very serious. Students are generally academically inclined. Other schools where the students are a little more disruptive. Now, if disruptive students come to a very academically serious school, it will create a disruption. So in general, if the karma is not for dharma, that the action that we are doing is not leading to belonging to a larger whole, it will cause disruption. It can even cause destruction. So the point is that we need to be aware that my action needs to be in harmony with the larger whole I am belonging to. And that's how we will be able to do something of value, and then we will get a deeper satisfaction. A student can go to a top university and party and have fun, and there's some pleasure. But a student can go to a top university, study, get a degree, and get a bright career, and there is much more fulfillment in that. So when through dharma we get artha, then we get karma. So what happens over here in this, there is this phenomena what is called as delayed gratification. We can do actions for instant gratification, or there can be delayed gratification. But when there is delayed gratification, actually there is greater fulfillment. So a student can just I want to enjoy life, or I want to achieve something, and then I can find happiness in a much more deeper and lasting way. So dharma into artha leading to karma is much more fulfilling, much more enduring. Yeah, can you go ahead? Who would like to read? Yes.
My
Have
dear
you got more
Lord,
copies? Can you just hand over to people? Yeah.
my dear Lord, my conception of a larger unit that I belong to may initially be small, limited to my family. Over time, it may extend to my community, my country, humanity at large, or even the earth as a family.
Yes. So everybody wants a sense of belonging to something larger. Now in the Western world, families are being highly fragmented. People are suffering from a lot of loneliness. And there are many people who are becoming strong activists. We have environmental activism, we may have some kind of political activism. The idea is, nowadays there is internet, and then people join internet groups. If somebody watches some TV show, then there are comic cons where people congregate over that. People play video games, there's a gamer community. So wherever you go, people want to belong to a larger group. Because we don't just, while in today's world freedom is valued, I want to be free. Yes, we humans need some amount of freedom, but we also want belonging. So the conception of what the larger whole may be may vary. But everyone wants that I want to belong to something bigger than myself, and I want to contribute to that larger whole. So that larger whole, what it is, that may be very different for different people. So, for example, now, if we consider as a teenage kid went there. A teenage kid belongs to the family. That's one larger whole that kid is belonging to. But the kid also belongs to college. Now, in the college, there are peers. Now, often, when a student goes to college, the peers of the kid often cause fears for the parents. What kind of kid is my child mixing with? Because what happens, at one level, the child wants to belong to the parents. Actually, my parents have raised me, my parents are taking care of me. But the child also wants to belong to the social circle in the college. And sometimes these two may pull in opposite directions. The parents may say, no, don't get involved in any drinking or drugs or any kind of bad habits like that. And the college kids may say, come on, have some fun. What is that YOLO? What is YOLO or YOLO? YOLO, what is that? You live only once. So now we actually don't live only once. Yeah, but we go to the present once, but it's repeated. But anyway, my point is, people, there's pressure to belong over there. And then the parents may say, why are children not obeying me? But sometimes we may feel that, why are my children being so difficult? Well, it's not just that they are difficult, they are being difficult. Actually, they are in difficulty. They are in difficulty also. Why? Because they also need a social circle where they'll be accepted, respected, and that social circle will not be their parents' social circle. They want their own social circle. And so then navigating that is a challenge. So the parent may say, I have raised you in this way and this is how we live. But this is how my friends live and I want to live with them. So dharma can sometimes So we may say, in the name of being with your friends, you are doing all adharma. Well, we can talk about adharma from dharma and adharma from a moral perspective. And yes, something they may do from a moral perspective, cultural perspective, which may be wrong. But the point is, if we consider dharma as an operational principle for existence itself, then what they are doing is for belonging to that particular whole. And for belonging to that whole, their conception is, okay, this is most important thing for me. And that's why they end up doing things which we feel sad or upset about. And maybe later even they regret it. If we consider in the Mahabharata, there is the character Karna. Actually, K is Krishna. Let's begin Karna first. So now, if we consider what happens with Karna, he wants to be a Kshatriya. The Duryodhan grants him entry into the Kshatriya circle. Duryodhan makes him a king. So the Kshatriya circle, he enters into that. But then, he also wants to be a close friend of Duryodhan. He wants to be in Duryodhan's inner circle. Now, to be in Duryodhan's inner circle, he has to do what will please Duryodhan. And Kshatriyas are meant to protect. Kshatrayate iti Kshatriya. If somebody is being hurt, Kshatriyas are meant to intervene to protect. Kshatriyas are sometimes seen as warriors. But more than warriors, they are guardians. Like in modern movies, we have Guardians of the Galaxy or something like that. So, the Kshatriyas are meant to be guardians. Now, guardians may have to fight. But the fighting is not simply to attack. The fighting is to protect. So, what happened? For Karna, there are two circles for him. Kshatriya circle was one thing, and Duryodhana's friend circle. That is another circle. And he came to a flashpoint at the time when Draupadi was being disrobed. Or when the Pandavas actually lost in the gambling match. So before that, Shakuni and Karna had opposing views about how to deal with the Pandavas. And Karna said, you want to get the Pandavas' kingdom, just challenge them for a fight. No, I will defeat Arjuna, you defeat Bhima, and we will get their kingdom. Shakuni said, Karna, you are a child. In war, there is no certainty of victory. Better to win without a war. And initially they tried to burn the Pandavas. Then they came up with the idea of a gambling match. So now Shakuni was spectacularly successful. They knew Yudhishthira would gamble because Dhritarashtra had told him and Yudhishthira didn't want to disobey Dhritarashtra. But then what happened by that was Yudhishthira gambled much more than what they expected. Yudhishthira was expecting that Dhritarashtra will tell stop now. But Dhritarashtra never said stop. So Yudhishthira kept gambling. And Duryodhan got all the wealth that he had dreamt of. Everything of the Pandavas was his. So now, say if we have some authority, we have some head in the family or leader of a temple community, we give some suggestion and the other person gives some suggestion. And the leader accepts the other person's suggestion. And that suggestion works out very successfully. Then that leads to a little bit of insecurity. I should also do something to show that I am also of value. So at that time, when Shakuni was successful in getting wealth for Duryodhan, and Karna thought, what can I do? Now Karna, he came up with the idea. Right, now that Draupadi is your maid, have her drag into the assembly and disrobe her. This is a horrendous idea. No, a Kshatriya is meant to be a protector of women. And here he is being a violator of women. Now, to his credit, Karna later regrets. He said, in trying to please Duryodhan, I went too far in that. He says this to Bhishma and he says this to Krishna also. Although he acknowledges that he went too far, But then he doesn't go back. He never apologizes. He still wants to belong to Duryodhana. And that's why he chooses to fight on the side of Duryodhana. So the point I'm making is here, for him, of course, suggesting that a woman be disrobed is adharma. But I hope that this principle of dharma as an operational principle. Dharma means belonging to a larger whole. And sometimes if we choose to belong to a wrong whole or unhealthy whole, then we may do adharma. But even when we are doing adharma, we are actually driven by another conception of dharma. So right now you are sitting, you are hearing this talk. Now some of you may just nod off and go to sleep. Now, I say, you do this class properly. But, you are souls and you are in a body. And it's a weekday, you have had a whole day's work, you may be tired. So you may feel sleepy. Now sleeping may be inappropriate. So it is, you could say not dharma, but it is dharma. I'm not encouraging you to sleep. But I hope that this point I'm making is, see, everyone, whatever they do, it is with some conception of dharma. So we can see dharma as an operational principle, and we can see dharma as a moral principle. So operational principle means when everybody is doing something, they want to belong to some larger whole. Sometimes kids, they can get into crazy kind of competition. Sometimes some kid who's never drunk, his parents say don't drink at all. And the kid wants to belong to a group where everybody is drinking. Then one day the kid says, I drink. And then the kid may get into a drinking competition and drink more than all the other people also. Why? Because he says, I belong to this group. And that may have devastating consequences. But it is with this conception, okay, I would belong to this group. So our conception of what we belong to may vary from person to person. And that's why one part of education is educating people about dharma. That means which whole is worth belonging to. With whom do you want to be accepted and respected? So we will all belong to some larger whole, but which whole do we want to belong to? So what happens? That is based on our conception of the whole that is important for us. And accordingly, we will be making our choices. Can we move to the next part? Who would like to read the second last paragraph?
When this conception evolves to its zenith, then I understand that it is you, Supreme Reality, who contains and sustains all larger realities, all the realities that sustain me, which are ultimately subordinate to you.
Yes. So when at the end of the Gita, Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja. Give up all dharma and surrender to me. What it means is, see, we all belong to various wholes. We belong to a family, we belong to a community, we belong to a country, we belong to a gender, we belong to an income group. There are many such wholes that we belong to. And the one larger collective that contains all other collectives, that is God, that is Krishna. So aham sarvasya prabhavo mattaha sarvam pravate. Krishna says, everything comes from me and everything is sustained by me. Krishna is the largest whole who contains, he doesn't just contain all other wholes, but he also sustains all other wholes. So when Krishna is telling Arjuna, surrender to me, sarva dharman parityajya. At that time, what is happening? Arjuna is torn between two dharmas. One side is Kshatriya dharma, according to which he should fight. According to his Kula dharma, he is belonging to his dynasty, and his dynasty are on the opposite side. So he said, I should not fight. So Arjuna is torn between these two dharmas, the Kshatriya dharma and the Kula dharma. So when his Kula dharma and the Kshatriya dharma pull him in opposite directions, initially he is ready to do Kshatriya dharma, he is ready to fight. But when he sees all his relatives on the opposite side, he says, how can I fight? When he sees his Kula, he loses his cool. And he says, what do I do? So at that time Krishna says, when two dharmas are pulling you in opposite directions, focus on your ultimate dharma. So he says, focus on me. So at the end of the Gita, so Kshatriya dharma means he should fight. The Kula dharma means don't fight, because these are your own family members. But what at the end of the Gita Krishna tells him, that Sarmam Ekam Sharanam Vrajana. What Arjuna says is, not that I will fight. What Arjuna says in 1873 is, Karishye Vachanam Tava. I will do your will. And that will happens to be for him to fight. So the point is that whatever larger wholes we belong to, they are all contained in Krishna. This is the mood of that famous verse, which many of you may be aware of. Tvameva mata cha pita tvameva, tvameva bandhuscha sakha tvameva, tvameva vidya dravinam tvameva, tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. So it is saying, you, O Lord, are my mother, you are my father, you are my sibling, you are my friend, you are my wealth, you are my wisdom. You, O Lord, are my everything. What does it mean? That you are my mother. So the idea is that a mother's love is what sustains a baby. None of us would be here if our mothers had not cared for us. So it is definitely the mother's love. A child belongs to the mother. At the same time, the mother would not be able to sustain the baby if Krishna were not sustaining the mother. When a newborn baby comes from the mother's womb, the mother does not do anything special to produce milk in her breasts. It is the same Lord who sent a child through her womb into the world, who also sends milk into her breasts. So in this way, Tvameva Mata, what does it mean? My mother is sustaining me, but it is you, O Lord, who are sustaining me through your mother. That is the mood with which Dhruva's mother tells him that in your distress I cannot help you. But what love I have for you, my Lord Vishnu has millions of times more love. So that is the idea. And like that, the same applies to every larger unit that sustains us. Even the wealth that sustains us, even the intelligence that sustains us, the wisdom that we have, is ultimately coming from Krishna. So we need to belong to Krishna. So in this way, when we talk about surrender to Krishna is the paradharma. When I understand that I belong to the highest reality, then I naturally surrender to Krishna. Can you read the last paragraph? Who would like to read?
Therefore, when I act in the mood of service to you, that is when I stay free from bondage and march towards liberation. For a life of endless love and joy with you. Help me, my Lord, to evolve in this journey from selfishness towards divine selflessness by cultivating the ethos of working always in a mood of service to a higher cause.
Yes. So I'll conclude with the last point, which will take about 2 hours. No. It'll take about 15 minutes. But this is an important point. So ultimately we are surrendering to Krishna. So I build this up that we are surrendering to Krishna, but when we surrender to Krishna, we all have our conception of Krishna. And when we are doing our dharma, so when we are practicing bhakti also in this case, how we practice bhakti, that will be shaped by our conception of Krishna. So surrender, that is what we are talking about now. Surrender can be at 4 different levels. It can be in tamas, it can be in rajas, it can be in sattva, and it can be in shuddha sattva at the level of prema. So Krishna is one, but how we conceive Krishna, ye thamam prapadyante tam sadhaiva bhajamyam. There is one Krishna, But for a person in Sattva, Krishna will be seen differently. For a person in Rajas, Krishna will be seen differently. For a person in Tamas, Krishna will be seen differently. In the Bhagavatam, Bhakti is talked about that even Bhakti can be Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, it's described. It talks about, so when, for example, we talk about religion. So how do you surrender to God? There is religion as a practice. We surrender to God. Now Tamas, the mode of ignorance, it is characterized by, one of the defining characteristics is insecurity. When we are in Tamoguna, we are trying to control things. Rajoguna, we try to control things and we succeed. In Tamoguna, we try to control things and we fail. So Tamas is characterized by insecurity. So that happens if this is Krishna. When we surrender to Krishna in Tamoguna, our surrender is based on insecurity. What do I mean by insecurity over here? That I belong to this group, I belong to this path, and if anybody else is following any other path, if their path is right, then my path will be wrong. And therefore, for my path to be right, their path has to be wrong. So when we are surrendering, then anybody who is doing anything slightly different from what we are doing, that agitates us. This can apply to one religion becoming intolerant towards another religion. It can apply to one group within a religion, within the same religion becoming intolerant to another. Because the idea is that my conception of God is very limited. What is my conception of God? Okay, that God should be worshipped in this particular way. So Tamasic, let's take a couple of examples of this. That there's a man in LA, he was on a bridge. This is an apocryphal story, historical story, whichever it is. There was a bridge and he was about to jump down from that bridge and commit suicide. So another man walked by, hey, don't end your life. He says, why? What is the point of living? He said, what's wrong? He says, nobody loves me, nobody cares for me, nobody values me. This person walking closer to him says, but Jesus loves you. And he says, how do you know that? He says, I'm a Christian. This person walking closer to him, person on the bridge said, I'm also a Christian. Oh, wonderful. Which Christian are you, Catholic or Protestant? This person is on the bridge about to jump off. I'm a Protestant. Oh, wonderful. I'm also a Protestant. Which Protestant are you? He says, I'm a Baptist. Oh, wonderful. I'm also a Baptist. Okay, so, which Baptist are you? He says, I'm a Southern Baptist. Wonderful. I'm also Southern Baptist. And this person come very, very close to him. Okay, which Southern Baptist are you? He says, I'm a Reformed Southern Baptist. Jump down and die, you heretic. So that sometimes we define our belonging. So our conception of God becomes very, very narrow. And then anybody who doesn't agree with that sense of belonging, we become very aggressive. So if surrender means, just this is one rule you have to follow. This is one thing you have to do. If you don't do this, you are off. I have a website through which I connect with people online, the spiritual scientists. So once, one person from Gujarat, he connected with me online. And then I was doing a retreat in the eco village. So he had come there. When he had connected with me, I encouraged him to go to the local temple in Gujarat. So he told me that, I asked him, how was your experience in the temple? He said, terrible experience. So what happened? So he said, there are two groups over there. And both of them are, the temple is a bit far away. There are two congregation groups over there. And they do Mangalarti on weekends. They come together. I said, that's wonderful. The congregation coming together to do Mangalarti. So one group does Mangalarti at 4:30. The other group does the Mangalarti at 5 o'clock. And I said, the group which I went to first 4:30, they say that Prabhupada said Mangalarti means 4:30. If you are doing Mangalarti at 5 o'clock, you are disobeying Prabhupada. If you are disobeying Prabhupada, it is not Mangalarti, it is Amangalarti. It is inauspicious. And Krishna will not accept your arti. Now, the fact that that somebody is coming together and doing Mangalarti, that is so important. That one small thing becomes extremely important and people start becoming judgmental. And then when there is insecurity, what happens is you just want to belong to that larger group. And you do anything to belong to that group. I have a friend in California who is doing his PhD in radicalization. People do PhDs in all kinds of things. This is important. Radicalization is how young people get radicalized. So he had traveled to Europe when this Islamic states had become quite big at one time. Then many Europeans had joined Islamic states. So he went and interviewed them and he talked with them. So one consistent theme that came up, people who were born in Europe, whites, why did they join Islam, become Muslims, and not just become Muslims, join this particular organization? So one consistent theme that came up was, they said that, life is so complex, there's so many decisions to make. When we joined Islam, and we joined this particular version of Islam, then we don't have to think about anything. Just follow your authority and everything is done. Now, surrender does mean following your authority. But we follow our authority to improve our intelligence, not to reject our intelligence. If Krishna had wanted Krishna is God himself. But Krishna does not demand uncritical blind obedience from Arjuna. Krishna says, if Krishna had wanted, Krishna would have finished the whole Gita in 6 words. I am God. Obey me.
Now.
Fight. Bhagavad Gita, Sampurna.
Sampurna means what?
Over. Done. So, Krishna does not do that. Why? Because Krishna wants to appeal to Arjuna's intelligence. That Arjuna is convinced that what he will do. So in tamas, there is insecurity and there is aggression. So even when we surrender, this is where, if it is tamoguna, then the small things will lead to big fights. I was in Texas. Texas is what is called a part of the Bible Belt in America. So I was going for a program and in front of me in a car there was a bumper sticker. It said, "Oh God, please save me from your preachers." Save me from your preachers. So normally, God in Christianity, the idea is God sends his preachers to save you. But save me from those preachers. I don't want anything to do with them. If they are holier than thou, condescending, if they are judgmental, then that doesn't work. So now, when we surrender in Tamoguna, we take one thing, make it into everything, and then that leads to insecurity. Somebody is not following it, aggression toward that person. If in Rajoguna, then surrender is centered on control. What does control mean over here? That whoever is in charge, I will obey that person fully. But why? So that I can rise in power, and in the people below me, I can demand similar obedience from them. So this is right from my 2nd or 3rd year in my Krishna consciousness, I started noticing this phenomena that there are some people who are so polite and humble and respectful with their seniors. And as soon as they turn to the juniors, it's almost like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Completely different person. They're so rude, so brutal almost. I couldn't believe it's the same person. So for them, surrender is not so much, okay, this is the structure in this organization, in this particular group. Now, if I obey the person above me, then I'll get power. And to the extent I show my obedience to the other person, I'll get power. And then I can demand obedience from the other person, people below me. So surrender in Rajoguna is just a tool to control. So now, of course, some amount of control is required. If we are doing a festival, then if we are doing Janmashtami, we have to have some control. The crowd is going to come here. The department is crowd control. So we can't say, don't be a controller. We are a controller in the service of the Supreme Controller. Isn't it? So we need to control. But the idea is, Here, Ishvaro aham bhogi siddho aham balvan sukhi adyo vijanvanasmi konyasi sadrusho maya. Here we may do some religious activities, but it's just to show, I am so pious, therefore bow down to me, obey me. Now, in Sattva, when we surrender, it is with wisdom, with intelligence. And actually, serving God is the good thing. And surrender in Sattva is relatively good. Here, it is the good thing to do. But when we are in Shuddha Sattva, at this point, surrender is done out of love. It's not just the good thing to do, it is the joyful thing to do. We surrender to Krishna because we want to express our love for Krishna. So for each one of us, when we are practicing bhakti, depending on the mode in which we are, we will conceive our bhakti and even our devotion in that particular way. And we will try to surrender to Krishna accordingly. We may think I am serious in bhakti, and we will be serious. But as we become purified, then we will understand that what matters really is my connection with Krishna. It is the purpose, see in Rajas and Tamas, it is all about, I want to control you, I don't want you to become powerful. So the purpose of bhakti is not proving that I am better than you and I am more advanced than you. It is not proving, it is improving. It is coming closer to Krishna. Many people, young people especially nowadays, say that I am spiritual but not religious. Have you heard this phrase? Yes, it is called SBNR. It's a whole demographic. Spiritual but not religious. Now when they say I am spiritual but not religious, why they say it is because they have encountered religion primarily in the Rajasic or Tamasic versions. Where they find that just people are very judgmental, very argumentative, very power hungry. I don't want to do anything with this kind of people. So now, when they want to be spiritual, there is something right about it, of course something wrong about it, because all religion is not like that. But sometimes what is wrong with them is that, in the name of being spiritual, they say, I'll just do whatever I want to do. I will do whatever makes me feel good. It's okay to feel good, but there is a process by which we can get that feeling in a sustainable way. And that requires purification. That requires following a certain path. So if they don't commit to a particular path, then that good feeling will come and that good feeling will go. It won't stay for a long time. They won't go towards. There is a spiritual experience and there is a spiritual state. Spiritual experience is one time, second time it comes and goes. But as we go towards a spiritual state of consciousness, it becomes steadier for us. We become more peaceful, our life becomes more purposeful. And that is what we seek in our life. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. I talked today about from dharma to surrender, and within that, the topic was surrender in the three modes. So the first point we discussed was about how when we do karma, we can do karma for kama, or we can do karma for dharma, and dharma will lead to artha, which will lead to kama. So this is also gratification, but this is delayed gratification. Now we discuss dharma in an operational sense. Dharma is in one sense, everybody does karma for dharma. But what dharma? That's the question. Dharma means harmonious belonging. So whichever larger whole we are a part of, the individual does something for the collective and the collective does something for the individual. When a person is doing so dharma can be seen from a moral perspective, but dharma can simply be seen from a operational perspective. So often there is dharma sankata. That means when somebody is doing adharma, what is happening is they are belonging to two dharmas. One dharma is pulling them in one direction, other is in another direction. We discussed the example of, say here, of a student in college who wants to belong to the parents and they also belong to the peer circle. We also discussed the example of Karna, who wanted to belong to a Kshatriya family, and wanted to Kshatriya community, and he also wanted to belong to Duryodhana's group. And the two pulled him in opposite directions. Then we talked about Paradharma. So Krishna is the whole who contains all other wholes. He doesn't just contain all other wholes, but he's also the whole who sustains all other wholes. So whatever a larger whole provides us, it is Krishna who provides that whole. And whatever we do for that whole, ultimately we are doing it for Krishna, if we understand it properly. So like a mother takes care of the baby by providing her own milk. But it is Krishna who is providing the mother the milk. So Krishna is the supreme whole. And the Gita's point is that we need to remember that we ultimately belong to Krishna. So when Arjuna is torn between his Kshatriya dharma and his Kula dharma, the Gita says, you focus on serving me. Remember that you belong to me and you follow my instructions. So this is surrender. Surrender is, in that sense, not rejecting our intelligence, but understanding that this is the ultimate whole I belong to, so it's the perfection of our intelligence. And then lastly we discussed about how, well, this is the ultimate reality, but surrender can also be based on our conceptions, which will be determined by the three modes. So while we want to surrender to Krishna, so if we consider that there is Shuddha Sattva, then there is Sattva, then there is Rajas and Tamas. So depending on the particular mode we are in, we will conceive Krishna accordingly and we will want to surrender accordingly. So if I am here, if my surrender is to Tamas, then it will be focused primarily on, although for name's sake I am talking about God, I am surrendering to God, but it's insecurity and violence, insecurity and aggression. So there are few things that trigger people's passions as much as religion. Religion doesn't cause violence, but religion can be used to cause violence quite easily. So if people are in tamas, rajas, and what they seek is control and power. That for them, they follow religion so that they will be respected. So they will obey certain standards, certain people, so that they will be respected and they will be able to get others to obey them. In sattva, it is out of wisdom. Yeah, this is the good thing to do. But when we are in Shuddha Sattva, actually we'll put here, Krishna is, you can say above over here. So how do we reach Krishna? Let's put it. In Shuddha Sattva, we have the purest conception of Krishna. So here it is out of love. So that same Krishna is perceived differently. And for us, to the extent we understand that I'm meant to not just surrender to Krishna, but surrender to Krishna tattvataha, understanding who he is. So we hear, we purify ourselves, and then we surrender. Then surrendering to Krishna is the perfection of intelligence. So Krishna, when he speaks the Gita to Arjuna, that surrender is not reject intelligence. It is perfect your intelligence. Understand how Krishna is my well-wisher and how surrendering to Krishna is the best thing for me to do. So let's conclude by going back to the prayer, and we'll repeat the prayer once again. So you can repeat after me. My dear Lord, help me to act for a cause bigger than my selfish pleasure. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Is there any quick question or comment? Yes,
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for a lecture that made sense from you build it up and it finally made the sense as well at the end. And for summarizing in all the lectures that you do, you summarize it so well that it actually makes sense after all that hearing. Prabhu, I had two questions. When you mentioned about Tamas Bhakti, right? where there's insecurity and aggression, right? And you gave an example that when we feel that if I am right, then he must be wrong, and if he's right, then I must be wrong. That concept. So, but Prabhu, when in this whole world there's so many philosophies. So then when we are talking about Shunyavad, Mayavad, Ved, Advait, Dvait, and there has been talking, right, we talk about it, that this is wrong and this is right. And we cannot put our legs on two boats. And one has to choose one path.
So, I appreciate the thoughtfulness of the question. Two things over here. First thing is that certainly there is right and wrong. And one aspect of spiritual growth is developing our capacity for discernment, the capacity to understand what is more aligned with reality, what is less aligned with reality. So, and recognizing what is right and what is wrong and communicating that to others can be done in a mood of service. But it can also be done in the mood of insecurity and aggression. So the point is not that there is I am right and you are wrong, that is wrong. The point is that you are wrong, and if you exist, that itself makes me insecure. So my conviction should come from my connection with Krishna. My conviction should come from my intelligence and ultimately from my experience. My conviction should not require your eradication. So your elevation I would like to do if I can. So if somebody is going on some other path, they have some other understanding, we would like to help them to rise to a higher understanding. But ultimately, Krishna has given everyone free will, and different people can come up with different conceptions. And we cannot eradicate people because they have wrong conceptions. So we don't want to be thought police. The whole war in Kurukshetra was not fought to make everyone chant Hare Krishna and become devotees. No, the war was fought for establishing a virtuous order in the world. There were Vaishnavas on the opposite side. Bhishma was a Vaishnava, Bhurishla was a Vaishnava. And there were Shaivites on the Pandava side. Drupada's family was traditionally a Shiva worshipper. So it was not a religious war in the sense in which it is fought today. Certainly we can communicate our convictions, but that should come from a place of compassion, concern and compassion, not insecurity and aggression. So it's the motive that matters. Okay?
Throw one more question, if I can.
Yeah, can you come back to you? Don't mind?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, please.
In terms of the disruption you mentioned is a little bit is not in the right mood, right? That it causes disruption and destruction. But a thought just came in terms of if you want to understand, say for example Ramanuja Acharya, when he went to Jagannath Puri, he wanted to disrupt the service he wanted to do it for the right cause. He wanted to make it the Vedic traditions to be followed, but Jagannath ji did not want that tradition to be followed. So I'm just trying to understand that sometimes when we think someone is disrupting something for a negative donation, but sometimes that disruptive behavior is for a good cause.
Correct.
So how do we understand that what disruption is being caused is for a good or a bad thing?
Good question. As they say, humility means that first we try to connect before we try to correct. First we try to connect, understand what is going on over here. Instead of just coming here and assuming this is wrong, that is wrong, that is wrong. First try to connect. So what are people doing over there? Is this dharma leading to some artha? So if it is leading to artha, then there is no need to disrupt it. So now, one of the principles in the broad Vedic tradition is desha kala patra, a time, place, circumstance. And I won't say that Ramanacharya wanted to impose the Vedic, because Veda is a very broad thing. He wanted to have the standard of worship the way it is practiced in South India. which is right, which is an exalted standard, but I won't say that use the word Vedic necessary for it. So it was a different standard, and he wanted to impose that over there. But Jagannath's worship is going on, and that dharma is leading to earth. People are experiencing Jagannath, people are coming there, people are experiencing some divine spiritual experiences, and they're moving forward. So that's why there are times when correction is required. But the key point is humility. What it means is, at first, connect. First understand, get into the place, understand the place, then correct. So I have a friend who has recently started going to America for preaching. And he was telling me that he is very upset. He said, in America when preaching happens, for almost all programs, the men and women just sit together. It's not generally in India in programs, men sit on one side, women sit on the other side. But here they're all mixed together. He said, hey, gender separation is a basic principle. Why are they mixing like this? It's just people will get distracted by it and people will not be focused on Krishna. So then I told him that there are many non-Indians also who come for programs. And there's one American devotee who told me this, that his girlfriend invited him to come for a program, and he came for a program in the temple. And when he came in, he was told that he sits on the other side and she sits on the other side. And he said, I just could not understand anything that was happening in the board. Now, what was going on? I couldn't understand the class, I couldn't understand what was going on. I was in Australia, I was in Muruvalamba, and there I was giving the Sunday feast. Before the Sunday feast, one American lady, Australian lady, I was waiting to go for the assassin. He says, can I ask you a question? He says, yes. He said that when that conch is blown, why does everyone kiss the floor? So now, many of our rituals, they're obvious for us, but they're just strange. Why are you kissing the floor? So the thing is that he told me later that he told his girlfriend, I'm never going to come to this program again. He said, it was just completely weird for me. I couldn't understand anything. Then they took him to a Western outreach program. And there, boys and girls sit together, men and women sit together. And there, it's if we come from a culture where there's rigid gender separation, and then suddenly there's gender mixing, that will be distracting. But if you come from a culture where there's quite frequent gender mixing, and then suddenly gender separation is imposed, that will be disruptive. So my point is, there is a certain level of Desha Kala Patra. There is also a part of the Vedic tradition. So, and that's why connect before you correct. This is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Are there things you're wrong? Of course, there are many things which will be wrong, and they need to be corrected. But connect before you correct. Okay? Any other questions or comments? Yes, we had a second question. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Prabhuji. In your discussion, you mentioned that there would be some religion where just one verdict given, one direction is given, you follow that and you just don't do anything. While in Hindu philosophy, it is, you can reason it, you can argue it and all those things. So, of course, we being Hindus, we think that that's the way to do it because somebody can follow ISKCON, somebody can follow something different. But this concept has also segregated or made a lot of segment within the society, and in the current world, this thing which happened in Bangladesh and other places, is just because the society is split into several subsections, that is rather working against us. So in that light, what do you think, that approach is better or this approach is better, because we are being victim of that situation?
See, there is in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 18th chapter, Krishna says, 46 and 48 verses, that there is no perfect way in this world. Sarva rambha hi doshena dhumeina avidirvavata. Every endeavor is covered by fault. So, you could say, you could go towards one extreme where harmonization is good. But when harmonization is the only thing that is sought, when harmonization is the only thing thought, we end up with homogenization. That everybody becomes basically like a Xerox copy. People don't think, people just repeat the same words like a puppet or something. Like
Parrot.
a parrot. Well, parrot is a word used in our tradition also. It's almost like a zombie or a robot, like a programmed script. Now, on the other hand, we can have diversity. Diversification is good, but diversification can also lead to dissension to a degree where there is total disconnection. That people just get reduced to their own silos. And I care for my silo, my smaller group, but I don't care for the larger group at all. So ideally, we don't want to go in this direction. So unity in diversity, that is achintya bheda bhed. So we are one and different.
Yep.
So the challenge is that in general, many spiritual teachers, I would say many spiritual teachers, many religious teachers sometimes focus on the different part too much and the one part too little. That means, say, you belong to this particular group. So you worship this particular God and you worship in this particular way and don't care for anything other. There's a time when the oneness with the larger group also needs to be emphasized. The time when the difference has to be emphasized. And what needs to be emphasized is when to do what. So for example, if I'm invited to a Ganesh Puja program, I stay in Maharashtra, and Ganesh Puja is very big over there. Now if I go to Ganesh Puja program and they say, all of you worship Ganesh, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, anybody who worships any devata is a less intelligent person. Stop worshipping Ganesh, start worshipping Krishna. Then I will be less intelligent over there. See? If they have created a forum for me and they have invited me to speak, then what I should be speaking is in harmony with that forum. If I am invited there, I encourage them. Lord Ganesh considered spiritual wisdom so important that it was he who wrote the Mahabharata, and when his pen broke, he broke his own tooth and used it ekata. Vakratunda Mahakaya, we say that, ekata. Is one tooth. So he wrote the Mahabharata. And in that the Bhagavad Gita is there. So to truly worship Ganesh, we should also study the gift that he has given us. Read the scriptures, read the Mahabharata, read the Bhagavad Gita, and then they will learn. So my point is that we need to be in harmony. So there, if I go to that program, I don't have to emphasize the difference. I need to emphasize the oneness. So we need to learn that ethos. So unfortunately, the difference is emphasized quite a bit. And like in many parts of the world, there is Chinatown. There's no India town like that. There are replicas, because India is quite a diverse country. China is not diverse, but it's not that diverse. There are not so many different languages there. So that spirit of unity, that spirit of oneness also needs to be emphasized. And if we have broad thinking leaders who emphasize that. So that's one philosophical perspective. From a historical perspective, what has happened is India has been under foreign rule for a long time. And Hindus, but speaking specifically, have got used for a long time to be in a position where they don't have much political power, political control. And they have learned to find their way up through whatever political system is there. But till maybe last 10, 15, 20 years ago, Hindus didn't really work to correct the political system. So it's like, say, if this is the larger whole, dharmasya glani, Krishna talks about it. That dharma can go wrong. Dharma can go wrong in two ways, where I stop doing my dharma. So the individual to the collective can go deficient or wrong, and the collective to the individual can also go wrong. So now if the individual is not doing their part properly, so the government is not, the individuals are not paying taxes, and the government has to make sure that the people pay the taxes. But if the government is not providing facilities to people after taking taxes, then the government needs to be corrected. So generally what Hindus were used to doing generally is, whatever the system, work within that system and rise up. And that's how when the system is good, like I said, in our Western world, Indians have worked hard and risen to a very high level. And if the system is not good, okay, work within the system to do changes. But sometimes the system itself needs to be changed. So doing this individual dharma, I think the Gita talks about it in 2.7. Arjuna is asking, Puchhami tvam dharma sammura cheta. The individual needs to correct themselves. But 4.8, where Krishna says, dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. That is, Krishna says, I come to correct the system. If the king is corrupt, I came to replace the king and put a more virtuous king in place. So we need to understand that dharma is also sometimes requires us to correct the system. So taking responsibility for that, taking initiative for that is important. So slowly we started doing that. Like now there are many Indians who are, Hindus I would say, not in the Indian political system, and the American political system also. I don't know how much they're active here in Australia. But slowly that awakening is happening, that activation is happening. So can it be done much more? Definitely. And a lot more needs to be done. It's a valid concern. Okay. A last question? You want to ask? So,
Yes. Prabhu, when you made those Venn diagrams, so Krishna is the whole, and then there were many other groups inside.
Yeah.
And sometimes they collide, not agreeing with each other, Kula Dharma and Kshatriya Dharma, for example. So my question was, see, when you make a diagram of a whole, inside that whole, there should be a group that supports the whole, always, right? It should be the case, right? Otherwise it should be outside the whole. So the point was that when you gave an example of a student who is struggling between the family group and the drinkers club group, so that drinkers group club will never support the whole Krishna whole. So
Correct,
but you still show it inside.
So when I said that any group, all groups are sustained by Krishna. Now what it means is, nothing can exist without Krishna. See, everything, one of the principles of the Gita is that everything attractive comes from Krishna. But that doesn't mean everything attractive takes us to Krishna.
Yeah,
So
exactly,
my point
yes.
is, no, so my point is that is where our buddhi is required. So even the drinkers who want to drink, they cannot drink unless their heart is beating, unless their body is functioning. And it is Krishna who is keeping their body functioning. But they are making choices by which they are going away from Krishna. So it's not that all groups within that group will take us toward Krishna. All the groups have come from Krishna in the sense that all the groups are sustained by Krishna. But we have to, it's our responsibility to choose which group do I want to belong to so that I can go towards Krishna. Sometimes even in the temple community, there are some people who may just come and they may just gossip. Oh, this person did this, they complain, they gossip, they do this and that. You know, we may, if we belong to such a group, we may be in the temple but we will not be going towards Krishna. You know, Prabhupada named the society very precisely. They named it as the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. It is not the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. The Krishna Consciousness is not a ready-made product that you can just go and pick up from somewhere. Krishna Consciousness is something which we have to cultivate. Now, the Krishna Consciousness movement can provide us facility for cultivating that. There are the deities, there is the satsang, there is the kirtan, there is the seva. All these are there by which we can cultivate Krishna consciousness. But if we start hanging out with people who are not there for Krishna consciousness, when I joined the temple, I thought everybody in the temple is a devotee. And then I was spending time with everyone. But in the temple, when there was brahmachari, there are some people who were well educated and they had joined because they were spiritually interested. There are other people who had joined because they were unemployed. And doing a temple was a way of just you do some service and you get some food, get some staying place.
Yeah.
Now, when I was associating with them, they were more interested in what would happen in my company than they were talking about Krishna. Then I felt, what am I doing? Then I talked with my guides and they said, don't spend time with them. You have to choose whom you associate with. So that is our intelligence. That's why dharma is two things. It's operational as well as operational principle as well as a moral principle. Moral, I mean, in the sense that which will lead to our growth. So we will always belong to some group. The group may be as small as my own body. I only want to take care of comfort of my body. So there's one. But which group should I belong so that I can grow spiritually? That is something which I need to choose intelligently. Okay? So we'll stop here. Thank you so much for your thoughtful participation. Shri Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Shri Krishna Bhagwan ki
Jai.
Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki
Jai.
Jai Gaur Premanand.
Hare Bo.
Chaitanya Charan Prabhu ki
Jai.